This used to be a fun house, but now it's full of evil clowns.
Hello. Today we are going to watch some quite disturbing content, but I think it's indeed important to talk about. So let's go over to Infowars Rainbow Snatch, or otherwise known as Millie Weaver.
Millie Weaver reporting for Infowars.com. So here's what's going down today. The Austin International Drag Festival. So you have all these headliners. You have Poo Poo Platter, May See Some Cocks, Eaton Johnson. I mean, I'll let you figure that one out on your own. And then E. So I came across E, and that's one of the headliners. And that looks like a boy dressed as a woman in drag. We've even recently seen Lactatia, the 8-year-old boy whose parents allow him to dress in drag so he can be paraded around at drag festivals.
I'm gonna find out who's lactating today.
I am a lactator, honey.
Drag is an all ages thing. Drag should be an all ages thing, and some people consider it provocative. It's not inappropriate, but it's not something that parents should be afraid of if their kids do,
so that the liberals can thus promote children should be encouraged to transition to whatever sexuality they want, even though we're finding out that there are complications associated, such as the hormones causing the boys to have penises that are stunted.
There's definitely been a lot of complications in terms of the bottom surgery because I've been on the hormone blockers and basically I haven't had a lot of development. So we're, debating if I have enough material to work with. It's all this weird stuff.
You're finding kids then decide later on, actually, I don't want to transition, and then they have to go through a whole reversal process. It's just a freaking disaster. We've also seen public libraries holding drag storytelling time.
Drag Queen Story Hour is fantastic because it addresses all of these issues of gender fluidity.
Where children are brought to the library to then have a drag queen read them a story, thus normalizing and promoting this drag fetish culture to young children.
There aren't a lot of kid drag queens. They're considered inappropriate, but inappropriate just means that you look good. I'm 8 years old, get it right.
But do they really need to be being paraded around and given this knowledge into a taboo fetish-like culture at such a young age? That seems like a topic for kids that are much older. We're talking teenagers and even young adults, not for young school children. And when you start reading throughout their event festival page, it says several times that all ages are welcome. It's an all ages event. You have this overly raunchy, sexualized drag festival. People coming can buy hotel rooms. It's in a hotel. How easy would that be to engage in prostitution?
I was kind of waiting for a pet parade to happen in the back. Like all these pets are adoptable. You could have the queens go back now. All these queens are for adoption. Yeah.
But also the fact that you have kids going to this. So we're going to go undercover. I'm going to gear up and dress up as Rainbow Snatch, and I'm about to go to the 2017 Austin International Drag Festival. This is obviously mature content, and if mature adults want to engage in this behavior and in these activities, that's their right. But when you start dragging kids into this type of culture, taboo activity, that's when it becomes an issue.
Just step up here. You're young and spry. Guys, show me up. Ladies and gentlemen, this is what your children will be wearing in the future. Yes, this is amazing.
I brought my ring too, I just left it in my other pants.
That's as racy as I'm gonna go. Racy as I'm kidding, I'm totally gonna go racier than that. How many gays does it take to run a cable under the stage? Apparently more than 2.
She had just dropped in from campus. Big guys with a smoking campus. Well, she ain't flying in on a bubble butt. Waist she a 10 with a bubble butt.
Teach children. Teach the children. Whew, I'm all about education. I actually do story time with drag queens in Chicago. Right? Yes, family programming. Love it, yes. If all of the children in the audience could plug their ears, because I'm just kidding. Trump's our president, we can say whatever we want. Please welcome to the stage, Cunty Hornet! Ladies and gentlemen, Cunty Hornet, one more time.
I married a boy who'd rather be a girl, but he never curls my toes for me like a boy should do a girl. He's stacked like a boy, but in the boudoir he don't attack.
You had little boys dressed in drag at this event, and they were watching and participating in what most people would consider mature content. Now, what was most disturbing of all is the main act that closed out before this intermission was that of a young child.
Please welcome to the stage the wonderful, the amazing, the dragnificent E.
E was the performer's name, the youngest drag queen around. That's how they announced him. And he, she, whatever, was rolling around on the ground, jumping around, performing. And essentially the format was to dance around seductively, remove some articles of clothing even, and people give you money, throw dollars at you, like what you would see at a strip club. And this is really disturbing because it's grooming children so that when they become adults, it's all natural and part of it.
You are amazing, and you keep doing you. I'm presenting you with your very own drag pride flag.
Give it up!
It's kind of creepy because it reminds me of when you see those creepy toddler and tiaras performances where you have these beauty queens and it already seems like the children are being sexually exploited. But now you have young little boys dressed in drag performing on stage in front of a bunch of adults, most of them men. Okay, there were a lot of like regular looking men that love to flirt with the drag queens and throw dollars at them and wink at them and throw kisses at them. They essentially looked like Johns, if you ask me. But they're dancing around in front of these men for this taboo fetish, and you've got little kids doing it, little kids being drugged into this culture. You know, if you're an adult and you want to participate in this fetish, you want to dress up in drag, you want to subscribe to this culture, that's perfectly fine, but you cross the line when you start dragging children into the middle of it.
There, go pick your cabbage, baby, pick your cabbage.
They should leave these children alone and let them develop their sexuality on their own in their own time and not be forcing these weird taboo fetishes on them.
Now, after watching this video, it makes me want to talk about quite a lot of different subjects, but let's focus on children and this gender identity issue thing, because transsexuality, first and foremost, psychiatrists would say it's a psychological disorder, but liberals, the lunatic ones, they would say it's natural, it's normal, it's nothing strange about it, they're special people. Well, they are special indeed, but I don't think it's a close bit to being naturalized. However, if they would say it's physical, well, I don't know about that, but it's very possible that the brain could have certain things that would make them attracted to the same sex, aka homosexuality, that could perhaps make them identify as the other sex, because, well, they might just think, oh, I'm supposed to be a girl because I look at things differently, I'm attracted to other men, for example. Then perhaps that would be a close relation to that. But in fact, why psychiatrists would argue that this is a psychological issue is that it's based a lot of times on fetishes, sexual fetishes for that matter. They fetishize themselves. It's like narcissism. They sometimes, transsexual people, they look into the mirror and they are in love with their other selves. It's like, for example, a man who goes out at day, his name is, let's say, Kyle. But when he's at home, he's gonna call himself Crystal. And when he looks into this mirror, Crystal, he will be totally infatuated with Crystal. And when he goes out again, he's gonna think, oh, that Crystal, she's wonderful. It might sound crazy, but that's sort of what it is. It's a very troubling thing. And trust me, it's not easy for these people going through this gender identity issue thing. Because, well, obviously some people go through with these sex changes, which are, I can say, something they will regret later. And I've seen testimonials from several people. I mean, just look up on YouTube. There are lots of transgender people talking about this. And I remember one very interesting one that converted to Eastern Orthodoxy, and he was very impressive about what he spoke about transgenderism. But regardless, the psychiatrists identify it as a sexual fetish and that it is being related to childhood, how you were raised and things like that. Because if you're gonna be allowed by, for example, your mother to dress up as a cross-dresser because, well, maybe she wanted a girl instead, or something like that, that she thinks it's cute, they condone what you do. And we have lots of bad parents that, in fact, want their, well, in my opinion, bad parents, because, well, it's very against the natural order and it's very anti-culture, because like they said in the video, it's their culture, this is what they do, and they indoctrinate these kids with them. And why the parents bring these kids out there, I don't know. Maybe they just want to be tolerant or open or have some friend there, but they are being invited to this world of crazy, and it helps make them think it's appropriate. I remember a conversation with my long lost brother. It was over 10 years ago, I think. I said, imagine how ridiculous it would be if everyone had these small thin voices, you know, like this. And I thought, what a ridiculous world. Everyone would think, like, laugh at each other. And he was like, well, if everyone had that type of voice, then it would be normal. And I was like, oh. Quite self-explanatory, right? Because it's not strange if everyone does it. So what these parents are doing is helping normalize this. And that's exactly what these state media things and all these political organizations that's maintaining Pride Festival are doing, is just keep pushing this stereotype that this crazy tranny stuff is gonna be completely normal, and every transsexual person is like this, and every homosexual are like this. They're trying to stereotype it, because any, regular police officers in Canada, they were banned from being in the Pride Festival because they were supposed oppressors of the normal gay people and things like that. And of course, people who doesn't agree with the stereotype of these, oh my god, or, feminized lesbian, those who actually likes to wear dress and have long, beautiful hair, look like a woman but still be a lesbian, they were not as well very welcome, because they want this stereotype. They want these crazy, cold, short-haired people. That's what they're trying to push as normal. And also we saw this in that school with that, dragon, lesbian, or trans thing. There's so many titles, I get lost. But you remember from the video. And those sort of things are gonna get more and more common. I mean, there's gonna be a mandatory thing that you're gonna have a transsexual go into your school and speak. And well, now in Western Europe we have Muslims coming in to schools and make it mandatory for kids to go and visit mosques and read about Islam, but they're not gonna read about the negative stuff about Islam, like Sharia law and things like that I've been spoken about in the past. And of course, these kids in school, they're not going to learn about the extreme high rates of suicides, or their parents won't tell them about the massive amounts of pedophiles that lurks among these sort of trends. And of course, you saw these men coming up touching these transsexuals. Like, are they just having a fun time, doing a party, know each other? Or are they like strangers joining in and be like, I want to touch that? Because there are really strange fetishes, because it's a sexual interest. And when mixing in kids and making this normal, and as well we bring in these Muslims, it's scary. It's really scary. And especially since here in Sweden, we are in fact going to check if we can implement a third gender. They're actually examining if there's an option for a third gender, if it's gonna be valid and stuff like that. And of course, they're gonna validate it, because our national heritage, our history, the ones who's gonna preserve it and things like that, it's a Pakistani in charge of that. It's insanity. A Pakistani in charge of Swedish heritage. And I mean, with all the crazy people they put in, like for example, we had a cultural leader for our culture, right? The modern culture of Sweden, minister. She was in fact a negress. She was a black woman. And now they're gonna push this third gender nonsense. Like, oh, I'm a gender non-binary, I'm a gender non-conforming, like Pink, and she's raising in fact her daughter to be a gender non-conforming. It's just pure insanity, like always with these liberal fools. And in for example Canada, they already have a third gender option, I'm pretty sure of. At least they have a law that protects. It was implemented last year, I remember, I think I've said it on the channel, where they were going to be protected. If you use the wrong pronoun too many times, you would actually go to jail and have to pay them a fine for harassment. And this law was also introduced in California, I believe. So welcome to shit-town crazy LA, Looney Bell. But that's what's going on. I mean, California, Canada, and Sweden are right now, you know, the real laugh stock of the world, but I would not call it a laughing stock of the world. It's just the leadership that's crazy. I mean, I live in Sweden, and I think I'm pretty damn well common sensed, as well as many others. But that's what the media, both left and right and independent people, try to push onto and stereotype that this entire nation is like this. They're crazy. They're hopeless. But they're not hopeless. I think a lot of people are going to suffer for this, and a lot of people are. I mean, there's people who's knowledgeable about these things, but don't know what to do, or just are being silenced, or whatever. And then we have a huge group that are completely unaware of this and doesn't care about this, because not everyone cares about politics, right? Not everyone are gonna stand with a sign and say, hey, do something about this. And that's why we in fact have our problems nowadays. And in Canada, I think there was also a parent couple that had their child, and they wanted to make it a gender non-binary, because they didn't think that their boy or girl, I don't remember what gender the child was, but they thought it was a gender non-binary. So they, in fact, when they saw a gender on this child, let's say it was a boy, because I don't remember, quite frankly, they see that this boy has a penis. It's scientifically that it is a man or a woman, and it has been for thousands of years. I mean, even our ancestors were smarter than this, because, well, we sort of worship certain people. I mean, at least traditionalists like me worships our ancestors in a way, or reveres them, shows respect, honors them. But we do also believe that for each generation we're supposed to get smarter. In this sense, our ancestors thousands of years ago were smarter. But I also have heard that certain big stars in modern time, not these that are in current days only, but certain iconic figures, like we had, what's his called, Freddie guy who was gay, I think, or something like that. And then I think a gender non-conforming, he wasn't really a girl, he wasn't really a boy or something like that, was in fact David Bowie, I heard. And perhaps you who is older are aware of this. But if you're not, well, I'm sorry to ruin your ruin your favorite character here, but that's at least what I heard. But it speaks volumes of how people would go to any lengths with their ideological beliefs that, we need to normalize this ultimate social justice warrior, just push this through no matter what. They're gonna force this onto children and make it law that this will be normalized at any cost. And any voice dissenting this will be labeled as an extremist, hateful person to silence them. It's just that simple. They have done this for quite some time now, and in the now 21st century, after the 2000s that is, they have been more and more extreme about this. I think the social standards have radically started to change since the 90s. I mean, first they try to normalize, there can be gay people and they're nothing in danger about these people. But then they're gonna push for their rights and things like that. And after that, they're gonna go with the next group and next group and next group. And now, all of a sudden, these things, children who's gonna be transsexual and gay and gender non-conforming, it's just going from one crazy thing to another. And it's always gonna keep exploding like this. There's no stopping to this. I mean, if you ask people who saw these things long ago and supported these and are like now, whoa, because maybe they were just curious and wanted to let these people have their right. It's a liberal right. Like, you can choose what you want to do with your life. But the insanity, it's just beyond belief how out of hand this is getting. You can only wonder if it will ever stop. And eventually they will bring in AIs and things like this and really just mix our DNAs with animals, which they are in fact doing, because Saudi Arabia has adopted their first robot AI citizen, and then they will continue to give these robots rights and privileges and voting rights, which means they will be affecting our politics. So then they can mass produce AI citizens and vote for whatever they want. I mean, it's the real technocratic dream, right? That they can program their people at their will. And it's probably gonna be the end of the world, to be honest. It's the most likely scenario, because I think this development with organics is gonna be far more complex, and they're gonna succeed with AI technology that's gonna be dangerous. And the military, I mean, they have drones already, that's unmanned firepower capabilities and everything. And they're gonna try to make Terminators, live Terminators, and I'm pretty sure there's documentaries about that. I don't remember watching them myself, so I have seen documentaries about this, where you have military personnel talking that, having things like the Terminator is our future. I mean, these movies are usually based on theories. I mean, theories, whether it is from scientists who have written books. I mean, you have these alien movies, they're based on scientific writings and things like that. It's not always just pure imagination in these movies. They're usually inspired by things. And it's pretty hilarious. You know, this InfoWars, who we watched the video from, their leader, Alex Jones, they have tried to put him in media as well, in some movies and even games. I'm pretty sure in Deus Ex, the latest game, I don't remember what it's called now, but they have this guy who's a anti-robot guy, and it's pretty fun that Alex Jones, in fact, made a video about this Saudi Arabic robot AI citizen, where he said, we are declaring war against this. This is the enemy. It's the Antichrist, which I really agree with. I mean, these robots will be the end of us. They don't have souls. They don't care about us. But, well, I think he's got a brilliant analysis of this anyways. But in this game, they implement this Alex Jones character, who's anti-robot, etc. And he really got the same scenery as Alex Jones on his stage, and really acts like him with his movement. And I think he had got like one metal arm or something like that. I'll see if I can find some footage of him, because it really looks like Alex. I don't think he sounds like Alex. He really moves and acts like Alex. Like, he got this strong personality. It's
Alex Jones here during a 3-minute break on Facebook Mentions. We're also going to upload this to YouTube. We got Tim Kennedy right here of UFC fame, but really special ops fame over here. This guy's like Chris Collins. Well, he's wild. Here working with us. Tim, I'm very excited that in the near future we're going to be announcing some collaboration together.
Yeah, dude, it's going to be fun.
You've got so many websites. What's the best website for folks to check out?
Sheepdogresponse.com or Tim Kennedy MMA. I mean, that's where you're going to find me. Everything else is social media.
At 2 o'clock today, in about 30 minutes, we're going to do another 10-minute Facebook Mentions or so. You going to have time?
Yeah.
Fantastic. Awesome. So I'm just letting you folks know that's coming up. But the main reason I'm doing this quick 3-minute video is I got sent this a few days ago. I kind of forgot about it. There's the article on Infowars.com. Alex Jones depicted as transhuman terrorist in new video game. And it's literally my speech from CNN. You know, Hitler took the guns, Stalin took the guns. And then I say, if you don't do what we say, we're going to kill you. And then truck bombs go up. So here we are trying to stop ISIS and Al-Qaeda coming into the country. Here we are trying to stop terrorism. Here we are trying to stop Black Lives Matter, kill the cops. Here I am calling for nonviolence and restore our republic. And it's another game implying that I'm for terrorism. Now, they could claim that in the future it's transhumanists who've been augmented, who fight back against oppression. So maybe the makers think they're doing me a favor. All I know is it's bizarre, it's weird, and I'm going to be playing that clip here on Facebook Mentions in about 30 minutes when we finish it. So tell us what you think on the article at Infowars.com. Alex Jones depicted as transhumanist terrorist in new video game. It is crazy. All right, we're going to go ahead and go live here in about 30 seconds. But first off, Tim Kennedy, again, this is unscripted. What is front and center with all the news you're covering, all the things you're doing right now?
I think it's preparation. I think it's training. You know, it's giving people the opportunity to live and exercise their freedoms. You know, if you don't exercise your freedoms, like a muscle, atrophy occurs. They shrink and they die. And that's what's happening to our freedoms. We're just letting them dissolve. We're letting them rot, and we're letting them decay. And I'm over it. So me and my friends and everybody that I know, anybody that I have influence of, we are doing exactly what every American should be doing, and that is exercising our freedoms.
They do this in many movies, that they try to make some character look like him, to demonize him, or, you know, make him silly. And he have in fact worked with movies himself, so it's very interesting, to say the least. I mean, people make games and they sometimes base them off so-called theories or conspiracies that are being taken place, to make it like, oh, it's just a fantasy, it would never happen. But, you know, it's the constant troublesome things. And the human chimeras, which is the gene splicing method they use, it has been in fact been admitted, which I have said before, I think, in 2016. America Medical Center or Science Center, I think it was, in America, 2016, admitted this. I think it was in August. You can probably check it up yourself just by Googling it. And this is something many have been pushing for, including Alex Jones, since I think sometime before that, I mean years ago, he have been talking about these sort of things. It's just scary that people are just gonna call these people conspiracy theorists while they in fact talk about these things, and then they have to admit these things later. It's like the Bilderberg meetings. I mean, I have shown clips of him before when he was outside this fence with police. It's paid by taxpayer money and no one can enter this entire place. It's a total no-go area where they have their secret Bilderberg meetings where they bring in people like Macron and Henry Kissinger, all of these big global players, and all of a sudden Macron is gonna be elected, and these aren't being covered by the press. These meetings are just silent, dead secret, and a journalist's job is to keep check on the big powers, to make sure that people won't be corrupt. But they're failing us every time because they themselves are corrupted. They're bought up. If you look at who's giving them the money, you're gonna see big corporations all over. For example, here in Sweden, our media corporations, they're owned by these bloody Bonnier, most of them. And they are Jewish family who owns a giant big book company, and they includingly owned the cinemas in Sweden, SF, Swedish film or something like that. And that's the place where they push these movies, which are being produced in Hollywood. Oh yes, Hollywood, this big propaganda machine. I mean, if you look on older Marvel movies compared to the ones today, I mean, just look at the latest, what's it called now? Fantastic Four. You're gonna have social justice warrior themes, and in Star Wars, though I think some of them was actually justified in the last movie, but still, you did notice huge social justice warrior things. That is something no one can disagree with. I mean, it was just clearly painted in the like a giant nuclear bomb in the sky. It was just dark and evil what they do. But that's Hollywood. It's dark and evil. I mean, the Harvey Weinstein, for example, he's just one of many. Was an entire documentary about these kids in Hollywood getting raped by their own PR agents and managers and everything. Like, pedophilia is one of the big factors in Hollywood. They're being controlled by pedophiles. And everyone knew about the Harvey Weinstein thing. People have been, in fact, admitting to this. People have been joking about this for a long time. And of course, this is what I talked about in my old dosage of propaganda video, that these icons, these heroes, these, well, of course, majority liberals that's gonna stand at these premieres and galas and just applaud and preach to the choir, they're gonna be the idols. People are gonna look up to them, and that's what the Hollywood is. And they're pushing the government's propaganda, and they're talking about injustices and things like that, feminist agendas, transgender issues. Oh, I'm a fat person and I'm perfectly fine. All of these crazy things, and they make child movies, and they're gonna have all these crazy people preach morals. And meanwhile, they have lots of housing for refugees. They refuse to take in a single one, even though they're gonna have 10 houses, and they're not gonna open up a single wing for a single family or anything. No, it's my property. Yet they talk about all of these inequalities and stuff like that. They have their giant mansions with their walls, and they're gonna be, oh, Donald Trump, you can't build a wall.
I'm telling you right now.
What do we have to do here?
Nothing. I'm going to take a shower. You sit there and have a drink. Water.
I don't drink.
Then have
Can
a
I
glass of
stay
water.
on the bar?
No, you must come here now.
No.
Please.
No, I don't want to.
I'm not doing anything with you.
I
now
know,
you're embarrassing me.
I'm sorry, I
No,
cannot.
come in
No,
here.
yesterday was a kind of aggressive for
I
me.
know.
I need to know a person to
I
be
won't
touched.
do a thing.
I don't
Do a thing, please. I swear I won't. Just sit with me. Don't embarrass me in the hotel. I'm here all the time.
I
Sit
know,
with me.
but
I
I don't
promise.
want to.
Please sit there. Please. 1 minute.
No,
I
I
ask
can't.
you. Go to the bathroom.
Please, I don't want to do something I don't want
Go
to.
to the bathroom. Come here. Listen to me.
I want to go downstairs.
I'm not going to do anything. You'll never see me again after this. Okay? That's it. If you embarrass me in this hotel,
I'm not
stay.
embarrassing you. It's just that I don't feel comfortable.
I mean, don't have a fight with me in the
It's not
hall.
nice.
Please, I'm not going to do anything. I swear, my children. Please come in. On everything. I'm a famous guy.
I'm feeling very uncomfortable right now.
Please come in now. And 1 minute. And if you want to leave, when the guy comes with my
Why
jacket, you can
yesterday
go.
you touched my breast?
Oh, please, I'm sorry. Just come on. I'm used to that.
But
Come on.
are you used to that?
Yes, come in.
No, but I'm not used to
I
that.
won't do it again. Come on. Sit here. Sit here for a minute, please.
No, I don't want to.
If you do this now, you will embarrass me. But no. Like, never call me again. Okay? I'm sorry. I promise you I won't do anything.
I know, but yesterday was too
The guy
much
is
for
coming.
me.
I will never do another thing to you. 5 minutes. Don't ruin your friendship with me for 5 minutes.
I know, but it's kind of like, it's too much for me. I can't.
Please, you're making a big scene here.
No,
Please.
but I want to leave.
Okay, goodbye. Thank you.
Before we begin, I just want to congratulate Harvey and his wife Georgina on the birth of their new baby boy.
Thank you.
Harvey gave us just what we needed, another hymn.
Finally, I'd like to thank Harvey Weinstein, the Punisher, that's his nickname. The Punisher, yes.
Harvey, if I keep thanking you in public, people will think we're having an affair. But nonetheless, if you're choosing sides in the playground before a scrap, I would like to have Harvey Weinstein and Graham King on my side.
Harvey Weinstein, Bob Weinstein, God bless them.
My friends at Miramax for making this film, especially Harvey. And
Harvey, thank you for killing whoever you had to kill to get me up here today.
And to Harvey Weinstein, the tough guy on the playground with the biggest heart. Thank you for saying you'd do anything for your friends, and you always do. Thank you.
And then Harvey Weinstein.
And Harvey Weinstein. Harvey and Bob Weinstein. Everyone.
Thank you, Harvey Weinstein.
I want to thank Harvey and Bob Weinstein.
My agent, Kevin Uvain, and God, Harvey Weinstein. The Punisher. Old Testament, I guess.
Especially the bomber Weinstein, my godfather.
It's better than I do.
Sometimes I call him Jennifer. It's a pet name.
Okay.
I would like to thank Harvey Weinstein.
Harvey Weinstein, who believed in us and made this movie.
Harvey, thank you to Harvey.
Harvey Weinstein for his commitment.
And to Harvey Weinstein and everyone at Miramax.
He's Harvey Weinstein.
Harvey Weinstein and Lawrence Bender and
Harvey and Bob Weinstein. You also break my heart with your uncensored passion.
But I have to thank Harvey Weinstein. And thank you, sir.
And of course, Harvey, who first took me on 20 years ago when I was a mere child sensation. I
want to thank the Mashbuka Weinstein. Mazel tov.
There's a guy I'd like to really thank here that people don't thank enough, but there's a kindly, wonderful, gentle man that we all deeply love. His name is Harvey Weinstein. A little rough around the edges, but a heart of gold. And we do love you. And this is a good man. People don't know that, but he's done a lot of good things in life. They'll write an article about that someday, too. New Yorker.
The twist in prosecutors' campaign to get film director Roman Polanski back in L.A. to face statutory rape charges.
Yes, that victim, who was 13 at the time, wants it to end now. CBS 2's Dave Lopez is live in downtown L.A. with the words that Samantha Geimer told the judge. Pretty surprising, Dave.
Very surprising, very shocking, however you want to look at it. Of course, it doesn't hurt her case because in 1993, she settled out of court with Mr. Polanski for a very large sum in the high six figures, I am told. But she says that that doesn't really matter. She feels the way she does because that's how she feels. This is a case seemingly that will never die. Going on 40 years now, Roman Polanski's name still being bantered about in Superior Court. Attorneys arguing that he should be a free man, and the 13-year-old girl that he raped all those years ago is now 53, and there she was today, front and center.
It just wasn't as traumatic for me as everybody would like to believe it was.
And before she said that, Samantha Geimer, who at 13 was drugged and raped by famed movie director Roman Polanski, who was 43 years old at the time, asked a judge to please put an end to this case that has lasted almost 40 years.
I would like to ask you to consider sentencing Mr. Polanski to time served in absentia.
Polanski thought he had a deal. He pleaded guilty to the crime in exchange for serving 90 days in Chino State Prison. 43 days into that sentence, he was released. His current attorney, Harlan Braun, said that he was told back then that Judge Lawrence Rittenband, who is now dead, had a change of heart, that instead of the deal, he was going to sentence Polanski to anywhere from 1 to 50 years in state prison. That's when Polanski got on a plane, fled to Europe, and has been gone ever since. Nearly 40 years now as a fugitive.
I never asked anybody to put him in prison for one day, and this was all about Judge Rittenband's ego.
7 years ago, the LA DA's office obtained an arrest warrant for Polanski. He's not free to travel in any other country except Poland, France, Switzerland. That's why Polanski, now 83, wants to come back to Los Angeles and be sentenced to time served. Judge Scott Gordon has already rejected that plea, and today, Braun tried one more time, this time bringing Miss Geimer to court.
If I was standing here saying, throw the book at him, I want him in jail for life, my opinion would count. When I'm standing here saying, I'm fine and nothing you can do to him will help me or anybody else, suddenly it's the states, not me, that counts. So it's a really hypocritical view. Either victims count or they don't.
She was 13 when Polanski had sex with her, 14 when he pleaded guilty to the crime, and she said she never once hated him for it.
I was almost 14. I wasn't 10. I was a young, sexually active teenager, and it was a scary thing, but it was not an uncommon thing. I understood much worse things happen to people.
Do you think you've convinced the judge today? He's been pretty adamant about this.
I'd like to hope so, but it seems that my situation doesn't really count.
The judge in this case is Scott Gordon. He said that he will rule from the bench in a written, he will rule in a written statement. He has 90 days by law to issue that. His court does not believe he will take the full 90 days, but they have no idea how long he will take. Back to you in the studio.
And the Oscar goes to Roman Polanski for The Pianist.
If you use a simple metaphor, it's like they're telling you to leave your door open to your house so that these burglars that you see in the neighborhood coming in, they want you to just let them come into your house while they're gonna have their door locked and live cozy in their house. So basically, they're just saying, well, since I'm living far away from all this crazy stuff, I'm getting money from benefiting from this chaos, and I'm being told by producers to tell these things. Of course, they are probably so brainwashed they wouldn't even realize this is true because they're being totally fed by this propaganda, or they are perhaps being conscious because some of these actors and actresses seem to be pretty smart people, but propaganda isn't about being smart. It's about spreading lies and really just feeding a narrative. It doesn't have to be lies, but it usually revolves around it, because you don't necessarily need to use facts in propaganda. You use morals in propaganda, and morals is usually a good thing, right? But of course, when you use virtue to attack people, because if you can't explain to someone why what we're trying to introduce here is good and no one wants to buy it, you talk to the old conservative generation, because they have their virtues from God. They have God's wisdom. They follow these traditional things. It's gonna be impossible for you to tell them that this transgender thing is a good thing, right? Or it's gonna be a social accepted norm within their society. They're gonna no, what the hell is wrong with you? You can't accept that. So what they're gonna try to do, the PR agents and all these propaganda types, is to try and change the moral view of this, to mold and shape what people think is good and right. And if they're gonna come in and say, well, you people, you can't wish any harm to this person, because, well, obviously, for example, me, I'm a very pro-life guy. I wouldn't want to kill anyone. For example, I'm very against immigrants. I don't want any immigrant here, but I wouldn't want to dissect them so they wouldn't have any children, use eugenics or put people in gas chambers, because, well, I sort of happen to have Polish relatives and that may just have gotten gas chambered and stuff like that. So I do feel like a personal connection to that to some degree. And absolutely, people like me and many others who have read about these things, they're going to be scared, and all of a sudden, it's going to be awkward to talk about this. But that's what they're trying to do. Of course, there are some others that are more thick and stubborn that would never accept such a metaphor or such morals to be used against them. So that's the thing. They're going to try and push with these morals over and over again until they are going to change the normal, and eventually they will try to push in people that will be within these communities trying to push out this propaganda, and then they will split that community into lots of different communities. I mean, if you look at the church, the Christian church, how many different Christian churches are there, and how many Islamic mosques are there? There's only one Islamic group. There's one Islam. That's at least what they try to say. But you have Shia, Sunni, and don't remember what the third group was called now. They're at least pre-Sunni and Shia Muslims before the split happened. They're living actually east of Saudi Arabia, I think in Yemen. But I could be wrong on the nation's name now. But it is at least east of Saudi Arabia geographically. When you allow groups to split, you can really mold that entire group. And obviously, you do this by indoctrinating children. And that's something I've talked about before, that why communism was so extremely well with having schools for children, and as well Nazis. It was because they wanted to use their propaganda onto their children, to force feed them into their socialist Marxist thinking. Didn't Katie Werfman, who I had speaking about National Socialism or Nazis in Austria, how they were given motorbikes and ski trips and all of this, and they came home, oh, look how fun we had. That's just because the government wants them to think the government is awesome. And to control the youth is key. That's what every government wants. Because, like Putin said, you are the future. And that's true. You need all the good PR you can get. I mean, propaganda isn't necessarily totally twisted and evil. Propaganda is ultimately necessary. Everyone needs propaganda. Technically, everything is propaganda because everyone is trying to hold some form of narrative, some form of propaganda. Because what is good and evil? What is all of these things? You do need some sense of propaganda narrative to steer these things up. Otherwise, you can justify just about anything if you don't have morals. Or, well, if you are becoming a nihilist, well, then morals doesn't exist. Morals, it's just obsolete. Anyways, it's just one of many examples you could make that would start to make this sort of change within a community, because it's always about subversion. As long as you can get into people's minds, to their lives, and affect them somehow, just by normal stories, talking about it lightly, and, you know, introducing them to the ideas, or like they do here, completely convert them to the ideas. If you don't understand what's going on here, like, what the hell are these boys doing? They're looking stupid, and you're sitting here with confusion marks over your head and thinking, why am I trying to sound serious about this? Isn't these people just completely stupid? No. Imagine yourself being a child. Where did you learn things from? Your parents, right? And if your parents are gonna learn that you can be a transgender, you can be like these people, and they're fun, and you're gonna grow up with this as a normal value. It's like when I talked with my brother, and he said that all of these alien species would have, with these thin voices, would have this normal thing, right? They would just see it as normal. They wouldn't see anything strange by it, because they haven't been introduced to the other thing, which we would call, I guess, not normal, our old normal, which is being completely decimated. And yes, that's the problem, that our normal values, our virtues, like the good thing like patience, oh no, fuck patience, let's ruin patience, and faithfulness, oh, I'm gonna wait until I'm ready, and no, now it's just have sex, massive sex, and then try to introduce all of these game shows where they're gonna have infidelity contests like Big Brother, Robinson, or whatever, and where they're gonna just try to cheat everyone and have bad morals to basically be a cheater until you get to the top and win the game. To just cause intrigues, heartbreaks, and all of these things. They try to normalize this. They want everyone to be assholes to each other. They try to ruin our cultures. For that matter, if you look at our own art, how it's being decimated, our own arts, you know, paintings and things like that. Now, modern art, it's just onto a painting, just lots of color looking like shit. And then you have people, instead of creating some form of statue or something that you're gonna be admiring of, you're gonna be, ooh, what is this? This ice sculpture looks magnificent. Then you're just gonna be stunted by seeing a plank and a boot on that plank, and they're gonna call it art. And like, that's not art. But indeed, it's art, and it's worth $5,000. Yeah, and believe it or not, people are actually buying that sort of crazy stuff. I'm just completely stunned that someone would actually consider that art. It's not art. Art is something you have to use skill for. You have to use lots of passion and time and devotion to these things. And really just try to capture something or make something very difficult. Because then technically, I can just go out, put a hat on my head and say, oh look, this is art. Because no one looks like me, and I would look quite unique. But that's the thing. Modern, the term modern is a term I've come to really despise. Because most of the time, these socialist bastards, they're trying to use the term modern. Like, oh, modern houses. They're technocratic houses. And the occurring theme in the technocratic view is to lower the esteem of humanity. Because humanity is a plague for them. They hate humanity. They hate free will. They hate spirituality. They hate religion. They hate our free will. It's a damaging construct for them. Because if people are going to be free, they can be rebellious against them, while they want ultimate control over you. That's what technocracy is all about. That's one of the ultimate enemies I have, at least. That's the one thing I try to awake people for before we enter such a technocracy. And socialism will be the basis for it. And it will be by disguising it as a good thing for all and everyone's blah blah blah, all that equality bullshit stuff, and oh, we're so good to the government is so good to us, we're good, all people are good. But this term good is just gonna be totally twisted into something we are not gonna even recognize as good anymore. I mean, I think there was something about that in the Bible. I mean, think of it. All of the things you used to hear in the 50s, let's say 50s, and 70s and 80s, how much have they changed? How much have they been radicalized to something completely new? I mean, could you ever imagine, for example, if you're an older person, in the 80s, or if you're younger, in the 90s, 2000s, that's where we are now, basically. But you get the point. I mean, even from a few decades ago, or just some years ago, some of these things didn't even exist. For example, a third gender. How long have that existed? That's very recent phenomenon. And they're just gonna keep pushing these things for identity politics' sake and just to split everyone's attention away from what they're doing. Because it's a diversion, yes, but it's also to introduce new things, like the AI and human chimeras, which is, like Alex Jones says, the enemy. I mean, if you look at many others talking about these subjects, there are lots of people talking about these things, but I'm trying to highlight him as we have watched his video here, because, well, he owns InfoWars, and Millie Weaver, she represents InfoWars. So I think it's only a good thing to point out that these people exist. That's kind of the intentions. What I do here with these videos is to introduce you to new faces and things like that. Of course, we watched her like 2 weeks ago, but sorry, the random generated number picked her, so she won the lottery. I'm as bad as that immigration system they had in the Visa lottery in America. God, how a bill like that could ever have been pushed, that's beyond me. But now we're getting off topic here, and I got lost actually. Damn it. But I think I was talking about modern structures and things like that, modern culture, modern things. Because suits and things like that, making everyone look the same, having the same type of uniforms, and making the houses look the same. If you're gonna build a neighborhood, you're gonna copy the house one and next to each other, and continuously do that. They do that with apartment buildings, they do that with stack houses. It's just disgusting. It's not even fun to look at. It's no artistic integrity, and they have no real patterns on the houses to be impressed at. Like, for example, in these older buildings, if you look at them, you're gonna find some real nice art and detail to the buildings. And if you look to these technocratic structures, it's just gonna be one and the same copy, the entire house. And if we look at the communist house in France, they have this huge glass house that's sort of waved. And inside of the main structure, the glass structure, you're gonna have also designed chairs and stools and things like that, where you can sit and have conversations with your fellow comrades. These things are in fact created by the architect who himself was a communist, and they're, you know, just like the modern furnitures you can buy nowadays, and it just looks awful. If you go into the dome, and yeah, the dome, why are they having this huge dome instead of a field of grass? That would look nice. Oh yeah, that's their secret, technocratic, sci-fi looking meeting house where they're gonna have their meetings. And well, of course, it's really reminds me of this European Union place where they're sitting, right? So yeah, not gonna draw any connections, but that's sort of how our society have developed with the communists' visions of these modern housings. I mean, even in North Korea, they had this huge project of a structure, but they ran out of competent engineers to finish that structure. So now it's just standing there like a ghost thing, and no one using it, I think, even. There's lots of these so-called modern things. I think even in where was it? In Bulgaria or something like that, the communists used to be there, and they built this giant bunker, and it was meant to intimidate people and show the power of the Communist Party that was holding Bulgaria. They still keep it and maintain it today because, well, you simply should not forget the past. It's bad to just destroy things for the sake of it because it's evil. It's better to learn from it. I think that's a very good and healthy thing. Unlike those socialists that want to create revolutions and destroy everything. I think like when you have things like statues of these people who helped and shaped, for example, America, like the General Robert E. Lee and things like that, statues, rather than actually studying the history and learning who this person was and what he did, people are just going to say, he was racist, he wanted slaves, even though he didn't want them. But anyways, so they try to ruin his statue. Well, we made that long video before, right? So we have talked about this. But anyways, they want to ruin these statues and just forget of the history. They want to destroy history. That's what it's all about. And just converting into the same cult-like thinking and just copy-paste everything. And they're making everything the same. That's the simplest way to put it. It's the end of freedom. Freedom is slavery, like George Orwell said. It's amazing how accurate he was with his things. I mean, I highly suggest, if you're interested about these sort of authoritarian control socialist things, I highly suggest you read his book 1984 and Animal Farm. If you don't like to read, you can always listen to audiobooks, and I do know that you can even find it on YouTube and purchase it for a little bit. His 1984 film, which I think is a pretty good film, actually. It's not as good as the book, I'd say, from my perspective. I mean, I've listened through the entire book in audiobook, but I think it's very good still to get it filmatized, because sometimes, if, for example, imagine if I wouldn't show any pictures or anything on my videos, just sometimes if I'm perhaps lazy editing, I would just put some game footage or something like that, because it does take some time to put a video together. Then it will be more difficult for you to comprehend what I'm saying. But if I'm gonna show you footage of things like, oh, let's say I talk about chemtrails and I don't show any footage, you're not gonna even know what a chemtrail looks like, except for my description. But if I show you, then you're gonna know what to look for, how it looks like. So that's a very interesting thing, that seeing is believing, as some people say. But that's a metaphor I think is unfortunately something that will lead to our downfall, because obviously people want to see this, oh, we have to see this proof that God exists and all of that, and therefore we should turn to this atheist cultural Marxism that will demand all religion to be purged because they're totally evil and corrupt, and they're destroying everyone's lives, they're causing wars and stuff like that, while they are going to be so virtuous and bow to their God King Marx, because they replace simply God with Marx and follow his totalitarian ideology. But I do have to end the video here, I noticed, because I've gone on here for quite some time. But I hope we've learned a thing or two here today, and in the meanwhile, this is where I get off.
Thousands of years ago, there was a basic form of chivalry. Our ancestors would hear the drums of war, giving the warriors of the tribe a chance to organize and prepare a defense. 60 years ago, when foreign air forces were approaching filled with bombs, they had drums of their own, air raid sirens. But in the 21st century, there are silent weapons for quiet war. Pathogens added to the food and water, and to the lining of plastics that destroy our vitality, turn off our hormones, and accelerate our journey towards death. I personally counter this onslaught with Anthroplex. Anthroplex is designed with known organic concentrated herbs to create the basic foundation to normal metabolic activity inside the human body. Discover why Anthroplex is turning so many heads today. It's time for us to take our bodies back into our own hands, and it starts at InfoWarsLife.com with Anthroplex.